Hello, curious minds. Welcome to this journey into the heart of our digital age. We all celebrate social media as a grand public square, a place where every voice can be heard, where freedom of expression seems boundless. But what if I told you that this square is actually a prison custom built just for you? Think about it for a moment. Have you ever noticed your feed seems to read your mind? It shows you exactly what you want to see, confirms what you already believe, and introduces you to people who think just like you. It feels comfortable, it feels like home. Yet this comfort is the first wall of our invisible cage. The question we must ask ourselves is crucial. Are we using technology to expand our horizons? Or is technology using us to confine us to an increasingly smaller and more predictable version of the world? The answer lies in a concept sociologists call the echo chamber. This echo chamber, also known as a filter bubble, is a digital space where we only hear opinions and beliefs that align with our own. It's not an accident. It's the fundamental design of the algorithm, the invisible code that governs what you see and what you don't see in your daily digital life. Imagine you have a personal butler. This butler learns your tastes perfectly. If you like coffee, he hides the tea and only ever talks about the wonders of coffee. At first it's great, but over time you forget tea even exists. The social media algorithm is that butler. Every like you give, every video you share, every second you pause on a post, it's an instruction. You're telling the algorithm, give me more of this. And the algorithm, like an obedient machine, complies. It floods you with similar content, reinforcing your ideas without you even realizing it. Neuroscientists have observed how this process can be addictive. Every time our beliefs are validated, our brain releases dopamine, the pleasure hormone. Social media doesn't just give us information, it gives us a chemical dose of well-being for thinking what we already think. It's a reward for not changing. The first effect of this cage is subtle. We start to believe that our worldview is the only one that exists, or at least the most popular. Everyone thinks like me, the feed whispers to us. This is called social proof, a cognitive bias that the algorithm perfectly exploits to keep us inside. Added to this is another concept, the filter bubble. It's a term coined to describe our personal online information universe. The algorithm doesn't just show us what we like. It actively hides what might challenge us, what might make us doubt or feel uncomfortable. So freedom of expression transforms. It's no longer about an open debate with diverse ideas. It becomes a shouting match within separate rooms. Everyone expresses their opinion, yes, but only those who already agree listen. It's a freedom that doesn't build bridges, it builds walls. The direct consequence is polarization. Society divides into digital tribes that not only don't understand each other, but come to mutually dehumanize each other. The other, the one who thinks differently, ceases to be a person with a distinct perspective and becomes a caricature, an abstract enemy. Sociological studies on online behavior show that without exposure to opposing viewpoints, our own beliefs become more extreme. Inside the echo chamber, moderate ideas die and radical positions are reinforced by the constant chorus of approval. Now, how does this affect your ability to think critically? If you never encounter an argument that challenges your premises, your intellectual muscle atrophies. You become more susceptible to misinformation and fake news as long as they confirm the bias the algorithm has already cultivated in you. The cage becomes smaller and its bars thicker. It's no longer just about tastes or politics. It affects our very perception of reality. We start living in parallel worlds with alternative facts where objective truth becomes irrelevant compared to the truth of our tribe. And this is where the illusion of freedom becomes most evident. We believe we're freely choosing the content we consume, but in reality, we're following a carefully plotted path by code designed to keep us hooked for as long as possible. We don't choose the menu, we only choose from a very limited menu. This lack of exposure to diverse thought impoverishes us as individuals and as a society. Innovation, creativity, and empathy are born from the crossing of different ideas, from debate, from the effort to understand those who don't think like us. The echo chamber is the direct enemy of all of that. You become predictable. And in the digital world, predictability is the most valuable product. If a platform can predict with 90% certainty what you'll see, buy, or even vote for, then you're no longer a user. You're a resource that can be managed and sold to the highest bidder. This goes beyond advertising. It affects the very fabric of democracy. An electorate living in separate realities, unable to find common ground or debate shared facts, is an electorate easily manipulated and difficult to govern. Public debate fractures. The real twist, the most unsettling truth, is this. The ultimate goal of the echo chamber isn't just to keep you on the platform, it's to mold your behavior so profoundly that you feel every action and every thought is a free choice, when in reality it's been subtly guided. We're sold the idea of personalization that empowers us, but it's a personalization that isolates us. We're promised a global community, but delivered a collection of isolated tribes. We're guaranteed freedom of expression, but it's granted to us in a room where only our own voice echoes. At this point, the situation seems bleak. Are we condemned to live within these digital prisons, with invisible yet incredibly strong walls? The answer is no. The first step to dismantling any cage is to realize you're inside one. Awareness is the key. So how can we escape? It's not about deleting our social media. It's about using them actively instead of passively. It means becoming digital explorers rather than passive content consumers. We must consciously seek the exit from the cave. One practical strategy is to actively seek out dissonance. Follow people, media outlets, or accounts you disagree with, not to argue but to listen. Try to understand their perspective, no matter how strange it may seem to you. This weakens the algorithm's bars by introducing data it doesn't expect. Another tactic is digital hygiene. Question what you see. Before sharing something that provokes a strong emotional reaction, ask yourself, why am I seeing this? Who benefits from my reaction? Be the guardian of your own mind. Don't leave the door open for the algorithm to furnish it as it pleases. Reclaiming your freedom of thought requires effort. It's easier and more pleasant to stay where we feel validated, but true intellectual and human expansion lies outside that comfort zone. It's found in doubt, in curiosity, and in the courage to listen to what's different. In conclusion, the great public square of the internet still exists, but it's surrounded by countless personal echo chambers. Freedom of expression is real, but it's only effective if we do the conscious work of stepping out of our cage to speak and listen in that common space. Thank you for joining me in this deep reflection on the digital world we inhabit together. I hope it has given you a new perspective on your own online experience. If this video has made you think, subscribe to discover more secrets of the mind and society. Your support allows us to continue creating content that challenges easy narratives and invites us to think beyond. Now it's your turn. Have you ever felt the walls of this echo chamber? What do you do to seek out different perspectives? Share your experience in the comments. Let's read and learn together. The debate about technology and freedom is far from over, but every conscious conversation is a step towards a more open and less controlled digital future. The key is to never stop questioning the reality presented to us on screen. This phenomenon is what some social psychologists call the spiral of silence. If you believe your opinion is a minority one because the algorithm only shows you the opposite, you're less likely to express it. Thus, certain ideas disappear from public debate not because they are unpopular, but because they are algorithmically silenced. Think of it this way. Your digital identity, that version of you the platform constructs, is based on simplification. You are a collection of data, preferences, clicks. The system encourages you to be a consistent and predictable version of yourself, because a complex, changing identity is harder to monetize and control. Accidental exposure to diversity is a pillar of a healthy society. Stumbling upon a book in a library, overhearing a conversation on a bus. Social media is designed to eliminate this serendipity, this random factor. Every piece of content is there for a specific reason, calculated to retain you. Now, the irony is that we join these platforms seeking connection. And in some ways we find it, but it's a superficial connection based on affinities and not mutual growth. True human connection often arises from challenge, from negotiating differences, not from eliminating them. Research in political communication shows a clear increase in affective polarization. This means we not only disagree on political issues, but we've begun to feel genuine aversion and distrust towards people on the other side. The algorithm emotionally feeds this division. Uniformity of thought within the bubble creates a false consensus. This false consensus can lead groups of people to make risky or ill-informed decisions, a phenomenon known as groupthink. They believe their decision is correct because, in their digital world, no dissenting voice exists. The solution, therefore, is not just to consume different content, but also to change how we interact. Practice active listening online. Ask genuine questions instead of making assertions. Seek to understand the why behind an opinion, not just react to the what. This breaks the algorithm's script. Remember, the platform is designed for reaction, not reflection. The buttons are like or anger, not makes me think or change my perspective a little. We have to consciously create that space for reflection that the interface doesn't provide. Pausing is an act of rebellion. Ethical tech design is a conversation we must have as a society. Should platforms be optimized for dwell time or user well-being? For polarization or understanding? Demanding transparency in algorithms is a fundamental first step. Finally, the goal is to achieve digital sovereignty. This means that it is you, and not an invisible code, who has ultimate control over your attention, your data, and your thought processes. It's about reclaiming your mind as your own space, not as a territory to be colonized by technology. A meta-analysis of 20 years of media consumption data demonstrated that information diversity is a key predictor of civic participation and tolerance. By limiting this diversity, social media not only isolates us, but potentially weakens the foundations of constructive social interaction. It's crucial to understand that the algorithm isn't evil. It has no intentions. It's simply an extremely efficient tool for achieving a goal, which is generally to maximize interaction. The problem is that the shortcuts to interaction are often controversy, outrage, and validation, not truth or nuance. Decision fatigue is a factor that platforms exploit. After a long day, it's easier to let the feed carry you along than to actively seek out something new. The system capitalizes on our mental exhaustion to reinforce existing patterns and make the cage feel more comfortable and secure. Language is also affected. Within echo chambers, unique dialects and jargon develop that are incomprehensible to outsiders. This reinforces group identity, but makes communication with other groups even more difficult. Words that should unite become barriers. Thus, freedom of expression becomes a performance for our own audience. We post what we know will be well received by our tribe. The social pressure of the bubble can discourage the expression of doubts or nuanced opinions for fear of group exclusion. Conformity masquerades as conviction. One way to break this is to humanize the opposition. When you see an opposing argument, try to find the real person behind it. Seek out interviews, videos, or longer texts from that person. It's harder to hate a face in a story than a simple avatar and a 280-character comment. Curating your own feed is a 21st century skill. Think of it as if you're the curator of a museum, your mind. What ideas do you want to exhibit? What perspectives are missing? Don't let a faceless algorithm be the sole curator of your intellectual exhibition. Take an active role. The concept of an information diet is useful here. Just like with food, consuming only one type of information, even if it's high quality, intellectually starves us. We need variety. A little history, a little science, a little art, and yes, a little opposing opinion for a strong mental immune system. Targeted advertising is the most obvious manifestation of this system, but ideological advertising is much more subtle. They don't sell you a product, they sell you a version of the world. And the payment isn't with money, but with your attention and ultimately your adherence to that particular view of reality. At the end of the day, technology is a mirror of ourselves. It reflects and amplifies our cognitive tendencies, like confirmation bias. The machine didn't create these tendencies, but it exploits them on a scale and with an efficiency never before seen in human history. That's why self-awareness is fundamental. Our memory is altered. Being in a constant cycle of ephemeral news and content, we lose historical perspective. An event from last week feels as distant as one from a decade ago. This contextual amnesia makes us more vulnerable to manipulation, as we forget patterns and broken promises. Empathy, the ability to feel what another feels, requires cognitive effort. The algorithm, by constantly showing us content that incites our outrage about the other, exhausts our empathetic resources. It trains us to react with anger instead of curiosity. Connection breaks down at a neurological level. Silence and boredom have become enemies to avoid. However, neuroscience studies show that it's precisely in these states of low stimulation that our brain processes information, consolidates memories, and generates its most creative ideas. The cage robs us of our right to productive boredom. The very definition of friend or follower is devalued. We shift from deep connections with a small number of people to weak connections with thousands. This creates an illusion of sociability without the real benefits of community, such as mutual support and accountability. It's a broad but incredibly fragile network. Gamification, that is, the use of game elements like points and rewards, is applied to our social lives. Likes are points, followers are a status marker. This pushes us to optimize our behavior to win the game, not to express ourselves authentically. We become players instead of people. We must be aware of the paradox of choice. We are presented with so many options within our bubble that we feel immense freedom. However, true freedom might lie in having fewer but more diverse options, including those we never would have thought to choose ourselves. Viral reach becomes the goal, and this often rewards the simple, the scandalous, and the emotionally extreme over the complex, the nuanced, and the rational. Thus, the information ecosystem degrades. The most visible content is not necessarily the most truthful or useful, but the most contagious. Algorithmic personalization can also affect our capacity for wonder and discovery. If the digital world perfectly adapts to us, we lose the opportunity for the world to surprise us, challenge us, and transform us. The cage is comfortable, but personal growth rarely is. Ask yourself, when was the last time you changed your mind on an important topic because of something you saw online? If the answer is never or a long time ago, it's a sign that the walls of your cage might be higher than you think. Changing your mind is a sign of learning, not weakness. The fight for freedom in the 21st century isn't fought on the streets, but in the invisible space of our minds. It's a silent battle against systems designed to capture and direct our attention. Every conscious choice to diversify your information is a small victory in that fight. Anthropologist Edward T. Hall spoke of culture as an invisible prison that shapes our behavior without us realizing it. The algorithm is a technological and personalized version of that cultural prison. It's a force that normalizes us, standardizes us, making us believe we are unique. A little discussed psychological consequence is identity exhaustion. By having to project a coherent and perfect version of ourselves online, we expend an enormous amount of mental energy. The cage demands a constant performance that disconnects us from our most authentic and vulnerable selves. Let's observe how the 24-hour news cycle, accelerated by social media, keeps us in a state of perpetual agitation. This serves to keep us hooked, but also prevents us from processing collective trauma and finding long-term solutions. We live from crisis to crisis without time for deep reflection. The attention economy is the underlying business model. In a world with information overload, your attention is the scarcest and most valuable resource. The echo chamber is the most efficient method to capture and retain that resource. You are not the customer. Your attention is the product sold to advertisers. Resistance to this cage can be simple. Read a physical book by an author you don't know. Talk to an older neighbor about their perspective on life. Visit a place in your city you'd normally avoid. These real-world actions introduce healthy randomness into your thought system. Philosophers like Byung-Chul Han argue that we have moved from a disciplinary society to a performance society. We are no longer oppressed by an external force. Instead, we self-exploit to be more efficient, more positive, more productive. The cage is attractive because it makes us feel like we're optimizing our lives. The idea isn't to demonize technology. It's a powerful tool that can be used for liberation or for control. The difference lies in user awareness. A hammer can build a house or destroy one. The question is, who wields the hammer? You or the algorithm? Consider the third-person effect. Most people believe that others are influenced by media, but that they themselves are immune. Recognizing that everyone, without exception, is susceptible to these mechanisms is an act of intellectual humility necessary to begin taking control. True freedom of expression is not just the right to speak, but also the ability to be heard by those who think differently. If your voice only resonates in your own echo chamber, you're not participating in a dialogue. You're contributing to a collective monologue. It's a sterile freedom. The future of human interaction depends on our ability to build bridges over the chasms that technology has helped dig. Start with a small act. Share an article with a friend and ask for their honest opinion, especially if you know they'll disagree. Initiate a dialogue, not a battle. The phenomenon isn't new. Since the invention of the printing press, people have tended to consume media that reinforces their beliefs. The difference today is the scale, precision, and invisible nature of the mechanism. Your bubble is perfectly impermeable and designed just for you, making escape much harder. Critical thinking in the digital age means being skeptical not only of the content, but also of how it reaches us. The most important question isn't, is this true, but why am I seeing this now? This metacognition, thinking about our thinking, is our best defense. The loss of a shared public space is one of the biggest threats. Before, television or widely circulated newspapers created a shared reality, a set of basic facts that could be debated. Now that center has disintegrated into millions of fragments of personalized reality. Notifications are the bars of the cage. Every ping is a call from the system for you to return to your personalized information cell. Disabling non-essential notifications is a simple yet powerful act to regain control over when and how you connect with the digital world. The system promotes an identity of outrage. It's easier to define yourself by what you hate than by what you love or build. The algorithm knows this and constantly feeds us content that makes us angry about the other side, because outrage is the emotion that gets shared the most. Ultimately, the power of decision remains yours. Every time you open an app, you face a choice. Will you let the current carry you along the path of least resistance? Or will you actively swim against it in search of deeper, unknown waters? Freedom lies in that choice. Don't underestimate the power of face-to-face conversations. In a world of avatars and profiles, talking to someone in person, seeing their gestures, and hearing the tone of their voice can break down the caricatures that platforms encourage us to build. Reality is the antidote to digital distortion. Educating new generations in media literacy is fundamental. Not just teaching them to use technology, but to understand how technology uses them. Teaching them to question the algorithm is as important as teaching them to code. The search for truth has become harder, but not impossible. It demands more from us. It requires us to be our own fact-checkers, to triangulate sources, and to accept uncertainty. The cage offers easy answers. Freedom requires living comfortably with complex questions. In summary, the digital public square is an ideal, but the reality is a series of interconnected echo chambers. Freedom of expression exists, but it's conditioned by code that rewards isolation over dialogue. Breaking that cage is the great intellectual challenge of our time. Our mind is the last truly private territory. Defending its autonomy against systems designed to influence it is a responsibility we all share. Awareness is the first and most important shield we have. So, the next time you scroll through your feed, observe it with different eyes. Not as a passive spectator, but as a digital anthropologist. Study the patterns, question the suggestions, and above all, remember there's a vast world of ideas beyond the limits of that screen. Uniformity of thought is the death of creativity and progress. Diversity, even when uncomfortable, is the engine of human evolution. Protecting our exposure to that diversity is protecting our own capacity to grow and adapt. Technology isn't going away. Therefore, we must evolve alongside it. We need to develop new mental habits, a new ethic of information consumption, and a renewed commitment to seeking perspectives that challenge us and make us more complete. Let's remember that every click is a vote. With every interaction, we are voting for the kind of digital world we want. Do we vote for more walls or more bridges? For more echo or more dialogue? The choice, ultimately, is still in our hands and our fingertips. In this era of apparent connection, the real challenge is to connect authentically, first with ourselves and then with others. The echo chamber is an obstacle, but as we've seen, it's not insurmountable. Freedom requires vigilance. Thank you very much for dedicating your valuable attention to exploring this topic with me. It's been an honor to share this space of reflection with you. To continue unraveling the mysteries of our psychology in the modern age, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Every video is another piece of the puzzle. I'm deeply interested in your perspective. Do you believe a social network that fosters healthy dissent is possible? Or is it a utopia? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Let's build the conversation together. Until our next encounter, keep an open mind and critical thinking sharp. Question everything, especially what makes you feel most comfortable. That's where true freedom begins.